been struggling with tomatoes this year, and I think everyone has kind of seen the same problems. You can see the yellow color to this tomato. The leaves are curled, and look, you can see how they're rolling downward. So that curl is facing downward, which is a key signal to me that this tomato has a disease and a serious problem. If I was just seeing these leaves not curled downward, just curled upward, the plant was green, it looked still fairly healthy, it was the right size, then I would just say it was a little bit heat stressed, and that's what we call physiological leaf roll, but this is not that. So what we have found is that we have a couple of problems going on. We've got some root rots happening along the Wasatch Front and in northern Utah, and if we pull this, we'll probably see, I was gonna pull it anyway. So look, for the size of this plant, these roots are very small, they're rotted, they're brown looking. I've got some crown rot even right here, Taun.
Yeah, the sheath on the roots are sliding off.
Yeah, which tells Taun that it's a rot, so it slides right off. You can see that outer skin pops right off.
For the size of the tomato,
it's just not enough.
You can tell that it didn't root enough.
Yeah, and so this is what we're seeing. So this is very likely a root rot. We would have to send it to a lab to verify what type of root rot. But we're also seeing problems with curly top, which is a virus. But if this was curly top, I would see beautiful white roots, not a root rot. They would be large. And I would still have stunting, yellowing, and curling. But
so we're seeing commercial growers and gardeners with anywhere from 50 to 100% loss on tomatoes. And it seemed like the Romas started it, but we've been seeing, as you mentioned, Pythium, Verticillium, Phytophthora, curly top, Fusarium
is what we've had in Davis County. But yeah, you can see how unhealthy that tomato looks just all around. And this is the key. When I pull it out, I'm just not seeing a lot of root structure.
And once this happens, is there anything people can do?
Pull them out and crop rotate next year.
Don't plant in the same spot.
Yeah.
What are you attributing? Because we've had so many tomatoes going down for different diseases, the root rots and things. What are you attributing to all the different diseases at once?
So we've been working really closely with our state pathologist, and she has attributed it to some of the environmental temperature fluctuations. Like, people held their tomatoes and didn't plant when they were expecting to. So then they started to get a little root bound, and we put them in the soil and it was still cold and wet. So that's where root rots really kind of take hold.
Or if they held them,
yes,
they were you said root bound, so it was late, and then we waited till June, and then we had that week of rain.
And then heat, crazy heat right after that. So it's just been the perfect storm, is what I have been saying, the perfect storm for tomatoes to not thrive.
So is there anything we can learn from this, so next year we don't do the same thing again?
The change in climate, and we're not blaming anybody or anything, we're just saying the climate is changing, and we're seeing more frequent severe weather in the spring and fall. And it used to be that we'd stay pretty mellow until early to mid-October, and then once we were past mid-May, you didn't see a lot of frost, but that's changing. And so I've personally been considering that if I'm planting warm season crops, especially tomatoes, peppers, that, you know, we saw the hoops over here that we can put protection over for the spring for a low tunnel. I'm almost wondering, for more secure crops, not only for pest protection but weather protection, if gardeners are going to have to start turning to something like that because of the sporadic weather we've been seeing over the last 8 or 10 years. It doesn't seem to be going away.
Right. And almost every grower that I've talked to, and we are very guilty of this, we've not crop rotated. So these tomatoes, I plant tomatoes in these raised beds almost every single year. And so crop rotation, to kind of deter some of these soil-borne pathogens that can cause root rots, is so important.
It is. And when you run into problems like this, if you get a buildup of root rot diseases, the Fusarium, you know, whatever it is, and you get too much, the option is to dig out all the soil and replace it in a raised bed.
Which is a lot of labor and a lot of expense.
And a lot of expense. It could easily cost $20, $30, maybe $40, depending on what mix you're using to fill a bed this size.
Yeah. So,
for those people who may have experienced something like this already, how late is it? Is it too late for them to plant other tomatoes?
It really is. We're too far into the season, I think.
For me, the cutoff for the Wasatch Front is usually around mid to late June.
Yeah. So, I mean, because most tomatoes take at least 90 days to get up and producing, and many of them take a bit longer.
Yeah, the other problem is they're not available in garden centers, and if you happen to be able to find some short season tomatoes, early girls, or 4th of July, you know, you could probably plant them and try to get them going, but then in October you would end up using low tunnels or something similar to keep them warm enough to actually get a harvest through September and October.
There's something wrong with that, though.
No. I mean,
No.
you can try.
So it might be something that you could buy the seeds and save them, and then maybe seed them in at the 1st of June, and have that if you have a low tunnel or some sort of a high tunnel or something that you can offer some late season protection.